All right, what's going on, folks? Hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of the Bordello. I'm in Toronto, coming to you from a bohemian Airbnb on a bed in shorts, exposing a deep lesion, which has healed probably about as best as it's going to heal. It's a scar from falling off a scooter in Amalfi about a year and a half ago, and I still have no skin on my knee, and I'm bearing it to the world here on YouTube in glorious high definition on my bed in my Airbnb where I'm based out of. I'm here for a week for a run of a few shows that I'm doing, kind of checking out the scene out here, and we're hopefully gonna do some stuff on the pod front over here, but currently, nothing was banked. We D'Lo and I did not adequately prepare. We should have recorded something before I headed out, but we did not. And so I'm rolling solo here, fucking on the bed with my back absolutely killing me, bro. My fucking back is, dude, my back is shot, dude. Sitting on this bed, fucking Indian style, still wearing sunglasses inside, even though I'm alone in a bedroom. Hope you're all doing swell. Again, we're going to be looking to do a couple of cool things in Toronto while we're here. We're trying to line some things up with other people for the pod, but we just couldn't get any of those banked in time to get the Wednesday episode out. So this one may be a little shorter. It might be out a little later on Wednesday, so apologies for that, but we're looking to get some cool shit in the can while over here. We fucking drove over here in my my shitbox Honda, which has an aux cord, which is nice, but I think the car is like running on fumes because, and it's not just because it's got like 264,000 kilometers on it, but it's because now when I plug my phone into the aux cord in my car, it's charging, in quotations, it is charging, it's quote charging, kind of. On paper, it's charging. The phone displays like a little, the little green fucking lightning bolt when it's plugged in, but it doesn't go up in charge. It just sort of languishes. It just sort of, it stagnates. It stabilizes. It doesn't really even charge my phone when I plug it in. It just keeps it from dying. It really keeps the phone on life support, especially when I've got a route going and I've got a pod going. It's really fucking fighting to not, and it often is dropping off in charge, but just very slowly. It almost delays the charge drain, and it turns it into a little dribble. So I drove over here. I don't know how many more road trips that thing has in it. I call it the Batmobile, but I don't know. I don't know how long that'll last. I actually stayed in this same Airbnb last year in the spring when I was last in the city, and I think I had to check out by 11, and I overslept. So the apartment is in the basement of a house, and it's private. But I guess hypothetically, if push comes to shove, the person who lives upstairs is able to access the premise. And I hadn't checked out by 11 because I was dicking around and the door was locked. I think I overslept because I didn't really give a shit about the time I left. And I thought, well, what are they going to do about it, right? If it's fucking 11:30 and I'm not checked out, 12 o'clock. So 11 rolls around. I'm fucking still asleep. I probably, stayed up half the night doing, I don't know what, watching World War II documentaries or something for all I know. I don't remember, but So the chick who I think runs it, there's a few people on the Airbnb listing. I don't know. To be honest, you don't even know who really runs it because it's a private apartment, right? So I don't fucking see these people. I'm in their basement and it's separate from the rest of the house and it's locked off, and there's a separate entrance. But I think there was a lady, one of the ladies who was on the apartment listing, came down the last time I was here in the spring when I was not checked out when I was supposed to, and she's knocking on the door going, Sam, and just To have a woman that is not your mother wake you up when you oversleep as an adult is crazy. It's fucking nuts. You know, just to have a woman that isn't like your aunt or your grandmother or whatever, your mom, whatever, you know, just like when you were a kid oversleeping for school or something, or it's like the weekend and you slept into like the late morning and your mom like comes to knock on the door to check that you're alive. That happened to me last year when I was here, and I'm planning on it probably happening again because I have no intention of rushing the fuck out of here. I think the checkout's at 11 and it's like a 5-6 hour road, 5-6 hour drive back on the road maybe. So I'm going to come back on Super Bowl Sunday to watch the Niners because my grandfather's still kicking, and I've not seen him witness his 49ers win the Super Bowl. My grandfather's an Italian immigrant, but he came to the country decades ago, like just before my mom was born, or quite a fair bit before my mom was born, actually, like 10 plus years. I mean, my mom's not that old, but you know, he's been here a while, whatever. So he's had a chance to kind of like, I've talked about this on the pod before, but he's like had a chance to become indoctrinated into like North American society, and he speaks English all right, and quite well, actually, very well. He's slowed down a little bit in the last couple of years, but he actually, you know, he used to speak very well. I think he's just slow in all speech now. He's just slower. You know, he just doesn't speak as quickly and sharp as he used to. But I was listening to old like tapes of him recently from just a few years ago, and he's very sharp. I forgot how well he used to speak. He speaks very well, right? English and Italian totally fluent, basically. So, but I mean, you know, his English isn't perfect. He did pick it up while he was here, but he picked it up well enough to the point that he's able to watch television and stuff and like understand stuff. He's not one of these like Italian immigrants that just, you know, just languishes having to watch, you know, I don't know, like Rai Internazionale, like that like you know, that broad Rai channel that they just, you know, ship out to, you know, the diaspora, which doesn't have as electric of a programming listing as Rai in Italy, which has like 4 channels maybe. There's like Rai 1 through 4 type of thing. My grandfather's not one of those guys who just watches that shit. The grandfather in question. So he developed a real affinity for North American sports, and Joe Montana in the 1980s kind of made him fall in love with the Niners, and he's been a fervent fan of them ever since. He really likes football more than any other sport. He likes baseball, hockey, and soccer to an extent, but he didn't grow up with it that well because you gotta realize he was kind of born. He was born in the 30s, so when he was a kid, there wasn't a culture of soccer going on. I mean, Italy had just won a couple of World Cups shortly after he was born. He was born between when Italy won their 2 World Cups in the 30s. So there was a real serious soccer culture to that, you know, in that sense. But he was a kid during World War II, you know. So I think the Serie A was like just defunct. I think they, like most major sport leagues around the world, just took a long extended hiatus of like 5-6 years during World War II. And we're going to talk about World War II a little bit on this pod because we got to talk about Mussolini. We're going to circle back to the Mussolini chat from last week. Obviously, you know, the bust of Mussolini that I face fuck at night to go to sleep peacefully is not with me. I didn't bring it with me into Toronto. You know, I didn't want to cause any problems if I got stopped. I didn't want to have you know, I didn't want to have to explain myself to any troopers on the road. So I left the bust of Mussolini, which I hold very dearly to my heart at home. Just know this, by the way. The bust of Mussolini, if you don't see it on the pod in the studio behind me, just know it's there. It's in the studio. It's actually in front of the camera. It's looking at me. I'm looking at Mussolini. I'm looking at Mussolini, just channeling the speech skills, the what would you call them? person who speaks well, is a good orator, the good oratory skills. I'm looking at Mussolini's statue, the bust, in front of the camera, right back home in the studio where I now keep a bust of Mussolini, as we established last week. I'm looking at it in the eyes, and I'm just channeling the inner strength to project the voice like he did, which is a tool that I learned stole from Italian cinema. We'll actually get into that in a little bit here. It's a thing that I'd heard before that I'd forgotten about, and a documentary that I watched kind of jogged that memory. But in any event, so what the fuck was I talking about? How does this always happen? How do I always get so fucking sidetracked to the point that we start talking about the 49ers and we wind up on Mussolini, face fucking a bust of Mussolini. So anyway, my grandfather is what a great transition that is. Face fucking Mussolini. Anyway, my grandfather is a great guy. So I don't even remember what the fuck I was talking about. I'm going to go nuts listening back to this. But I think I was talking about the 49ers and my grandfather becoming a fan of them. Oh, right. So when he was born in the 1930s, Italy won a World Cup when he was like, I think, a year old type of thing. So I'm sure that was a big thing, but he wasn't around. I mean, he was around physically, but he wasn't sentient yet. So that didn't really leave a mark on him. And then World War II, happened. And for the first, 10 or so years of his life, which is kind of when you'll get into a sport, right? That's when you'll really, start to get exposed to what's out there, right? As a kid, as an elementary school kid. So he just didn't have Serie A to follow, I guess. And he, granted, he's also from Abruzzo, which is like, I mean, it's not an especially developed region. It is now, but I mean, at the time, it was a lot of farm. He was a farm guy. He wasn't like he was from a town that actually had a team, I guess. He might have, who knows? He might have gotten more involved in that if it were around, but it was not. And so he kind of came here, I guess, with not a huge sporting background, because the one sport in Italy was soccer, and I think he only had a passing interest in it. He never got super into it. But over here, he just he fell hook, line, and sinker for hockey first and then football later. And so I'm rushing back on Sunday to watch the 49ers lose to a rigged NFL system that's going to see the Chiefs and Taylor Swift probably take it home, which will be ultimately better for the league, but it might also put my grandfather in his grave. So I'm hoping that big cock Brock pulls through. Brock Purdy's mom over Taylor Swift all day, bro, all fucking day. They were showing her on the broadcast the other day. That's a classy woman. That's a classy looking lady right there. I'll take her over Taylor Swift any fucking day of the week. That's a lady who has not done any work. Naturally pretty woman, but just looks her age. That's America. She should be America's sweetheart. I think she's a blonde woman. That's America right there. Brock Purdy's mother. You're the mother of a guy named Brock who plays in the NFL. Where's he from? Where's Brock Purdy from? Let's actually look this up right here. Let's see if this narrative holds up. If he's from I don't know. If he's from Florida or something, that doesn't really work. I mean, maybe in some ways that could kind of be she could be, she's a Florida mom. That could be a type of American ambassador to the world, but it's a very specific pocket of America that she would be representing. He is from Brock Purdy, 24 years old. Oh, here we go. Queen Creek, Arizona. Nice. A desert mom. A fucking white mom from the desert who doesn't naturally inhabit that area. She moved there. I mean, that's yeah. Brock Purdy's mom over Taylor Swift. Abso-fucking-lutely. I hope they show them. I hope they give Brock Purdy's mom a little bit of airtime. Brock Purdy's family, Is that it? Is it just they'll show Purdy's family when he has a good play, and then anytime anything happens for the Chiefs, they just fucking pan to Taylor Swift? Who's more for the people, A billionaire who tours the world, or a mom from Arizona? You tell me. But yeah, my grandfather, man, my grandfather. I was thinking the other day, like, you got Blackrock just going around buying all the residential real estate, like in America, apparently, right? They're going around just offering people over market value. They're going around to the boomers, offering them fucking. But I mean, the boomers really are butt fucking America when it comes to the housing market in particular. I think most of the homes are probably owned by older guys, by boomers who just don't want to sell. Apparently, there's like this trend where older guys, 60, 70 years old, just aren't budging. They're holding on to their assets, and they're they just won't die. Unfortunately, these people, right? That's the thing. Back in the day, people would just smoke and die. Maybe that's why they had to let people keep smoking, is because they knew that it was bad. Perhaps they, in big tobacco might have known that smoking was bad for you, but they probably had to keep that under wraps for social control. Because, I mean, if it gets out that smoking is bad for you and people start holding off, then people start living longer. And you need to have people die. You need turnover. You need to have, homes back on the market. You need to have people not just, live to 100 years old. It's unnatural. We're keeping people alive longer than they often would go. I mean, I know that people have, typically lived to 100 throughout history. I mean, not on average, but I know that it's not been atypical to occasionally see a person who naturally lives to 100 if they live without incident. I get that that's probably like the lifespan. If you could just stave off any sickness, that's usually kind of when the body starts to fall apart. You got about 100 years. Everyone now thinks they've got 100 years. And they're probably right, by the way, assuming that we don't all blow up in a war or something, or we avoid natural disaster, or we don't all kill each other. I mean, we're likely to probably live to about 100. People born, my age, Gen Z kids around 2000, the turn of the century. We're all kind of in a spot now where people are living to be longer than ever. By the time we get to that point in, 60, 70 years, who the hell knows? I mean, who the hell knows what, what it'll look like, what the medical profession will look like, what kind of information is available. Who knows? I mean, there'll probably be people whose consciences are getting exported onto hard drives and, living forever, which is a nightmare, by the way. I mean, just, I was watching a documentary about Mussolini the other day, and it's like he met a very cruel end, but that's cool, Like these important historical figures, and not necessarily good ones. I'm not calling Mussolini a good historical figure. Let's throw Hitler in there as well, because he's an obviously, bad historical figure. But bad as he was still impactful, right? Most people are not impactful. It probably would have been better if Hitler hadn't been impactful in any way, and he had just been a dude who was an artist and died. But that's what most people do, is they just live and they die. And to think that those nobodies now are going to have their consciences live on forever, when, like, I don't know, Alexander the Great or other people just died, and I don't know. You don't think that Einstein or Galileo or Da Vinci or Socrates might have more to offer to the world forever than fucking, than Gino Maniscalco from Laval, who's going to fucking, upload his his consciousness to a smartphone or something, or whatever the hell a smartphone is, in 20 years. He's going to live forever. Does that feel fair? Is there any nobility in that? There's nobility in dying. Just die. Just die and be remembered. I mean, it's got to end at some point. But, I don't know. It's people are scared to die. And so I think there are efforts to prolong life that will, people are always trying to make efforts. People are always trying to make efforts to prolong their life. It makes sense. But there's a limit. You got to know when it's over. When the body is done. Say you live a beautiful, long, happy life without incident, and you're 100 years old and your body's just breaking down and you're on death's door, and it's coming. It's coming, A gust of wind will take you out. You're feeble. You're weak. You're just going to go in your sleep. You're just going to shut down, Like sometimes you're on a computer, you've had it for 10 years, and one day, it shuts down. Right when you're there, just say, great, it's been a good ride. I did what I could. the Sinatra song, you know, play My Way in your head and just go out. That's it. Don't take your brain and upload it to the cloud. And then at that point, if you're uploading your brain to like some kind of never-ending, you know, I don't know, your consciousness, not your brain. If you're uploading your consciousness to some kind of never-ending device or some never-ending, I don't know, into some eternal, let's call it eternal, even though, you know, the whole power grid can go down, which is funny. That imagine, dude, you just upload your consciousness, you know, to the cloud or something. You still live on somehow. Your brain is still on, even though your body is dead. But then the power grid just goes down, and you just you just die with it. Like, there's no nobility in that. Just die with your body, you know. But again, to think that anyone would just do that and continue to live on is strange, and it feels off. It feels wrong. You know, I don't know. I don't know. Do I want to take the Christian route here on this? Like, you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses who I don't know how many of them there really are anymore, but feel like they can't be, feel like that club can't be, you know, ever expanding. Feel like they must be losing members, you know, every year. But as they all die off, I don't think they're fucking getting new members, are they? But, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses, man, who just accept, you know, fate for what it is and say, yeah, it's fine. I got cancer, but I'm not going to treat it. I'm going to go. It's obviously a more extreme, by today's standards, it's a more extreme approach, but maybe there's some nobility in that. Just go, you know, don't stay in your house forever. Just turn it over to someone. Turn it over, you fucking boomer. Let it go. Let it go. Let your kids divvy it up 3-way so that they can have something. Just something to I don't know, to lessen the burden maybe a little bit. You know what I mean? But so a lot of boomers are, you know, holding on to their houses, but apparently so rather than you know, downsize or go into, I don't know, a retirement community. It's a retirement community, Mom. Rather than doing that, they're just kind of holding on to their house, hoping to get, I don't know, 4 times what they paid, 10 times what they paid, 20 times what they paid in God knows what year. And so Blackrock are coming in and buying houses from people, right? This private equity firm that's coming in and buying up all the residential real estate in America. And I was thinking, like, you know, we tell our grandparents, I was talking about grandfather scams a few weeks ago. You know, like we tell our grandparents to not, you know, talk money on the phone with anyone. And if someone brings up money on the phone, you just hang up. I was thinking, we got to be able to fucking train our grandparents to be able to detect Blackrock. Because if Blackrock calls and is offering 25% over market value, you got to take that deal. You know what I'm saying? We got to train my grandfather. If you get fucking offered more than this is worth, you take that deal and we'll reinvest it into a triplex. You know, you move in with us. Let's make some money here, you know? Let's make some money here. I'm actually afraid that if Blackrock calls my grandfather, he's just gonna hang up and tell them to go fuck themselves and call them donkeys. That's his move now. Is if he doesn't if he thinks you're trying to scam him, he'll call you a skunk. He'll say, you skunk, and he'll hang up. He can't do that to Blackrock. He's got to do that to the credit card scammers in the area, but he can't do that to Blackrock. And it's a real thing that we're all gonna have to start dealing with here. You know, we might have to come up with a training program or something to I think there's money there. A training program that enables your grandparents to detect the real nefarious threats, but welcome the private equity firms that want to ruin America and buy your house. Now, again, collectively, this is bad. You don't want this to happen throughout society. I want nobody else to sell the Blackrock, but I want my family to sell the Blackrock. I want Blackrock to give my family more than my house is worth. I want Blackrock to offer my grandfather, 50% over market value. I do. I don't want any of his neighbors to sell. They all need to stay there. They can't sell the Blackrock. They can't do that because that's wrong. It's bad for society. But I want my grandfather to sell to them so that instead of just selling off the house one day for whatever it's worth, we'll get more than what it's worth now, reinvest that into another fucking property, and then, benefit from market growth. But, for a property worth 50% more than what we would have otherwise had. We need to do that. We need to sell the Blackrock, ideally. Boomers should be ruining, they should rue the day if RFK gets elected, and he won't, but if he does, if Trump gets elected and goes kind of, anti-establishment, I guess. He is anti-establishment, but if he gets elected and goes full, he goes full, if he goes balls out to try and curb companies like Vanguard, State Street, Blackrock, the guys who RFK rails against. If Trump tries to mitigate their efforts, of the World Economic Forum cocksuckers to buy up all the real estate in the world and drive people into rental properties so that they own nothing. If Trump comes out and actually does dismantle that whole system, I guess that would be good for society, but it wouldn't be good for the boomers who want to get as much as they can for their properties. I think this is a thing that nobody's really thinking about. And, you see it especially in Toronto, too, where the values of homes is astronomical. I mean, it's the highest in Canada by a stretch. And it ain't much more affordable than Montreal, but it also is. Does that make sense? It ain't affordable in Montreal, but it's actually considerably more accessible properties are than they are here in Toronto. So, yeah, I want my grandfather to be able to try to detect who Blackrock is. We got to try to teach him Blackrock. We couldn't teach him how to use an iPad, but now we got to teach him who Blackrock is. And that these guys are going to come for his house, but it's good. We want them to have the house, My grandfather, who says to me all the time, who's making no money in stand-up comedy, be careful what you sign. Don't sign anything. Don't sign anything. We're going to convince him to sign over the house to Blackrock, and he won't be suspicious. Yeah. Fuck, man. Fuck, dude. So, I don't want to talk about Juve. I mean, look, Juve lost to Inter in the Derby d'Italia, and it's tough. It's real tough because that's the season done. But I feel good personally because I feel more involved now. I feel more into it than I have been in the last couple of years. That was a really good game. At the end, I was very upset. I thought, Szczesny made a couple of really nice saves to keep it interesting, and Inter could have had a couple of other goals, but man, it was a good classic Serie A game, tight 1-goal game. Each team had other opportunities to score that would have swung the match. Vlahovic should have scored a goal in the first half, or should have at least got a really good shot off on a beautiful chance that McKennie set him up for, and he didn't get it off. But it's been a while since I've thought back to a game and said, fuck, if that chance, he should have buried it. It still bothers me that Vlahovic didn't save. Sorry, that Vlahovic didn't get a shot off and take a better touch on that beautiful setup by McKennie to get a crack on goal, maybe put us ahead. It still bothers me. That hasn't happened in a while, so I'm happy. They lost. My team lost, but I am happy that the league's competitive. That my team is competitive, and that I'm getting to now, care about what's going on with them. I'm no longer indifferent, which is nice. It really is. But yeah, I think I'm back. I think I'm back with Calcio and shit because I saw Marco Materazzi was talking shit about how Juve didn't get any real shots off, and he was joking that Jan Sommer should have been added to the attendance in the stadium at San Siro. Jan Sommer, the goalkeeper, because he barely had any work to do in Inter's 1-0 victory over Juve, and that upset me, but I was mad for a second, and then I was happy. I said, I'm mad. That's good. I'm mad. I care. I thought to rail against Marco Materazzi for a second and call him a scumbag of a player, and I'm not doing that because I'm not going to fall for the trap. That was his whole shtick, because he was a ball buster, right? When he came out in the white suit after Inter were awarded the Scudetto in 2006 in the courts after Juve won it, and the courts took it away from Juve and gave it to Inter. And Materazzi accepted the award in a white suit or something in San Siro and said, "We're I'm like a dove. We're a team of peace and honesty and even though now the evidence suggests that probably wasn't true. The evidence suggests that the judges in the Calciopolis case were partial to Inter overall and had a real vendetta against Juve, and I think one of the key figures in that whole thing used to be a C-suite guy with Inter, which is crazy. It's insane. I think it was maybe a guy who worked for like a telecom company, which leaked the audio of conversations that got Juve in trouble. I think that guy might have used to work for Inter. Excuse me. He was certainly an Interista, and I think he might have even been like the president or something. I could be totally misremembering that, but he just Materazzi. Even though that was the backdrop of what had happened, Materazzi came out in a fucking white suit, and he's always been shit disturbing. He shit disturbed, us all to a World Cup in 2006. I mean, just talking shit to Zidane. It was beautiful. Zidane's a North African guy. He insulted his sister. Materazzi insulted Zidane's sister. When you do that, the North African man is going to get mad. He's going to snap. He's going to lash out. It's just what it is. And so I understand that Materazzi's trying to get me, the Juve fan, riled up. And I saw it. I acknowledged it. I appreciate it for what it is. And I moved on. But it did upset me for a second. And I said, good. I'm back. Okay. So last week we talked about Mussolini a little bit. We joked around and we're fucking around talking about Mussolini. And I realized that there's a lot that I actually didn't know about him. There's a lot that I didn't know, and I like history. I do enjoy watching history documentaries and reading about it, but, fucking, let's be honest, I like watching documentaries more. I watch more documentaries than I read about history. How's that? I actually wish they taught us more, world history in high school, because in high school, all they taught us about was Canadian history, which is interesting to an extent, but, to an extent, to a T. It's not, to a fault. It's not that riveting. It's really not. I started learning about Native Americans when I was 8 years old, and when I was 18 years old, I was still learning about Native Americans in college. In like a mandatory class, I think, in CEGEP. That's almost not an exaggeration. It's, it was retelling the same stories over and over, I like world history. And so I watched a History Channel documentary on the life and work of Mussolini. And I realized there's a lot that I don't know about him. Last week when we were on the pod, but ultimately, I guess the details are interesting, and they do enable you to get an idea of what was problematic and what was endearing to people. But I don't think that my conception was totally off last week. I think I was pretty close to hitting the nail on the head. I just kind of got like the tone of last week's pod when we were fucking around, and I was joking, about him based on like shit that I'd heard. I think it was pretty accurate-ish. I think the read that I got on him was not bad, but there are a lot of problems. So it's an interesting thing that he was able to do. Basically, Mussolini was a swindler in a lot of ways because he was a devout socialist, and his father was a fervent communist slash socialist. And in the late 19th century, when Mussolini was a kid growing up, he was exposed to his father's political ideology, and I think he took it in full stride. And he disliked the church. His mom was very religious, and I think he attended church as a kid, and then he turned his back on the church eventually at some point and wrote about how religion is, I guess, a tool for social control or something in the early 20th century when he was writing in a newspaper. I forget the name of it, but it was a socialist newspaper. Then eventually what happened was, so his whole story was when he was in his 20s, he was writing for socialist publications, and I think what happened was, at some point, he realized that war was a good tool for social control and for, more importantly, for uniting a country. And so he, despite his, his contemporaries on his side of the aisle not being fans of war and being non-interventionist, he, Mussolini, advocated in his publications or in his writings, in his articles, he advocated for Italian intervention in World War I or something to that effect. And that's where it all fell apart for him, really. When he said Italy should join the war. We should be in World War I. We shouldn't be on the sidelines. We should be in it. The socialists disavowed him. I think they canned him from the newspaper he was at. And he started a new newspaper and began writing for them in a similar vein, but under a new kind of umbrella of politics, which I think eventually became known as fascism. But essentially, what he did was, I think politically he never really changed all that much in terms of him being a socialist who believed that the state should own all, but he just utilized, PR really to get people on board with him being the central figure who makes all decisions in life. And so what he did was, and this is a thing that everyone is pretty aware of. I shouldn't say everyone, but this is a thing that a lot of people are pretty aware of. But the fucked up thing with him was he never actually got elected. Now that's a very important thing that I never addressed last week. But he was appointed by the king. In essence, Italy hasn't had a king since after World War II, when it became a full-on republic. Italy was united in the 1860s, I believe, but it only became La Repubblica Italiana, which has its current national anthem, which we all love, right? That one, right? In, I think, 1946, 5 or 6, or in the 1940s. So prior to that, I mean, there was a king, there was a prime minister. Mussolini had gained a significant amount of power when he, when World War I had ended. I think he had done some time in jail for something. I'm light on these details now. These are kind of less important, but basically he was just a guy who had strong socialist convictions, who got very mad about the fact that his party had disavowed him, became bitter, and kind of said, fuck you, I'm going to rule all. I'm going to be the guy to take power. And he was just probably an egomaniac, really. You kind of have to be to do what he did. But I don't know that he was like thinking, I need to make myself the central figure of this movement to get people's support so that we could make their lives better. I don't know that that's what he was actually thinking. It seems to be that he thought more along the lines of, I need to be the central figure of this whole thing, of this whole movement, because we do need people's support and we do need people to blindly back us. But ultimately, the reason we want that is so that I will go down as a powerful emperor in history, and also I will be able to basically enact, or put in place a de facto socialist government in Italy. Now, of course, it'll be called fascist, but in terms of the policies they pursue, I think kind of more along the socialist, school of thinking. They weren't really all that different from what I understand. And so basically he got fervent support through his writings in his newspaper, and, a citizen army of black shirts became fans of his, and they marched on Rome in the 1920s, in the early 20s, and horrified that civil war would break out between the communists and the fascists. The king just basically gave the keys to Mussolini, and he ruled accordingly. He killed his political opponents, and he he also he also banned all other political parties from existing in the 1920s for fear that they might stifle his government. So basically, he just killed democracy. All the while, becoming beloved by the people en masse by simply tricking them into, not even tricking them, I guess just emotionally manipulating them into a fervor. And you know, it is funny when you watch Berlusconi speak, because he really was, in terms of delivery, just in terms of delivery of the message. Now, obviously, he got elected, and it was a very different thing that he did in his life. He was a guy who got elected head of the state a couple of times and ran on policy. I think he ran on a little bit of flair as well, but he had, ideological convictions and ran on those and won on those. I do think he was obviously, an egomaniac, but the comparisons between, Meloni and Mussolini, or Berlusconi and Mussolini, are lazy. They're very lazy, because they both got elected. Meloni and Berlusconi both got elected on policy. I think you could draw comparisons. In the case of Meloni, they'll just kind of trace back like the genealogy, I guess, of her party to, I guess, somehow, it's, parties get fragmented, right? And you could trace, on the family tree, her party is, down from the fascist party of Mussolini, which is, a little creepy, but it's also kind of no longer really a factor. Like in practice, it's no longer, it is actually no longer relevant in any way, even though there are probably, a lot of supporters of Duce who are a little, dog-brained, right? In that they're all about, it's okay to be proud of your state, but yeah, it's a little weird if you say, Italian excellence above all else. That's where it gets a little weird, and that's where it gets a little dog-brained. And I think those people might support, Meloni, and she's allowed to wink to them, right? They're fucking citizens, and they're gonna have to vote somewhere. You may as well. It's really immature when people say, well, she's appealing to bad people. It's like, hey, bad people are part of the voting class, asshole. You have to try to win, and you win through democratic election. So you need as many heads as you can obtain to back you, and that's it. That doesn't mean that you necessarily believe in all the shit that they like or say in their private life. You kind of stay true to your to your policies and to what you espouse, and you hope that it appeals to people. You cater it as is needed, and again, is it a little icky? Yeah, but politics are fucking icky, bro, dude. It's fucking soccer is sports are icky. People are always trying to gain a competitive advantage in the governance of any thing. So to pretend that a potential leader isn't going to try to appeal to the wackos on either side is insane. People on the left try to appeal to the fucking retards on the left also, and they are fucking retards. The people that are crazy new age far left are insane. They're nuts, and they're barely even part of civilized society, but you still need their votes, to an extent. I mean, you may, if you don't need their votes, and great, but their vote, how's this? Their votes count for something, and so if people like you on, on the crazy side, if the crazies on one side like you, that's fine. That's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? Is Trump really all that nuts? No. But does he appeal to a lot of people that are nuts? Yeah. And does Trump feed into it? Yeah. But it's easy for him to do. He just has to kind of, act based. And they're like, oh, yeah, based Trump. He's our guy. He's the man. He's our savior. It's like, hey, Trump never said that. He kind of implies it. But he also, has real policies that in looking to implement, it can be argued might, be to the benefit of America, right? So and anyway, the point is politics are complex, right? But in the case of Mussolini, it wasn't really that complex because he just took power. He took power, and there was no there was an internal struggle, I guess, but it was between the partisans and the communists and the fascists, and they were constantly, I think, trying to undermine him. But there wasn't like a struggle in the there wasn't a struggle for the electorate. It just didn't exist. It didn't happen. Mussolini was given power and he held on to it, and that was it. And it was a period in time where other people were doing that also. You know, Franco in Spain was doing a similar thing. I think someone tried to do that in France. I forget his name. Came very close. I think, you know, just whatever. It's what was going on in Europe at the time, you know. Can we say that, you know? I don't know how Stalin got the position of head of the Soviet state. I don't know if he was elected or not. He might have been. But, you know, it was a period in time with a lot of really strong, you know, political leaders who ruled with, you know, with an iron fist in many ways. And here's the thing about Mussolini. The funny thing about him is, I'm going to demonstrate this here, is so his whole shtick was, because it was like, you know, the 1920s that he got elected, right? There wasn't like a huge diffusion of media to the extent that there is now. And so he was able to gain support through writing and through, I guess, like speeches on the radio, and he would project his voice in such a way that would get people to think he was virile, and women would be like, "Ooh, who's this? I want to fuck him." And it's because he would present himself in this way where he would kind of like put his chest out and go, I'm going to take out my glasses for this, but he would go, "Per la Repubblica del Popolo." Like it was a fake, it was fugues. His whole, you know, way of speaking was fugues. Put the mic down here for a sec. He was a fraud, you know, in that, you know, he didn't really speak that way. It was an act, which is, you know, what most politicians do now, right? Most politicians do put on, they have a persona that they need to kind of tap into when on the mic. And arguably the fun thing about Trump is his persona is just rogue. Like he kind of doesn't even, he just freestyles everything, which is kind of what's like impressive about him. He's not rehearsed at all. But a lot of politicians do rehearse stuff, and they kind of like, you know, when the lights are on, they're dialed in. Often it's like an extension of themselves. It's not like that, you know, fake of a personality. Sometimes it is, but other times it isn't. And the point is, it's normal for a politician to kind of like put out a certain image, but the way that Mussolini did it, he was very image conscious. He was a PR genius in a lot of ways. Anytime he would speak, he would like present himself with his chest out, shoulders rolled back, and he would put his jaw up, and he would kind of be it was a bit like De Niro almost, where you go like this. Siamo orgogliosi di essere italiani. And it was like he would kind of like project to invoke, you know, invoke power, I guess. I don't know. Just imply that he was a strong figure. And in reality, you know, militarily, Italy was weak as fuck. I mean, when he aligned with Hitler, they weren't ready for war at all. And I think Mussolini wanted to stock up a little bit and build up an arsenal over the course of a few years before, you know, ever entertaining the prospect of going to war with anyone. And then I think Hitler just kind of invaded Poland and butt-fucked him. And so Mussolini's biggest mistake was aligning himself with Hitler. Because when it started to go, awry in World War II for you know, the campaign, the Axis, he just you know, he crumbled. Right, the king had him arrested and so on, because the people had turned on him. Italy was losing the war. They tried to invade Greece, even though they were severely unequipped. They got butt fucked by the Greeks in the mountains. They fucking took them into mountain warfare, kind of like the Taliban, dude. You know, it's probably what kept the Taliban, you know, going against the Americans for so long. Is they were just in the mountains, you know. It was like this terrain that the Italian army had no clue how to navigate, and they were unequipped, and the Nazis had to bail them out, and that kind of delayed the invasion of Moscow, and they wound up going in the winter, the Nazis did, which arguably might have butt-fucked the entire campaign. And so, you know, it wasn't an appropriate alliance between Hitler and Mussolini. In order for it to have worked out, for them to have won the war, Hitler would have had to have been more patient and probably built up over time, and Mussolini would have been ready to help. And I think Mussolini might have been trying to build up an arsenal so that he can invade more countries, maybe in Africa, and just kind of grow the empire, which was a thing that was looked at very favorably at the time, because it was, it was a symbol of, it was a token sign that Italian strength was something to be proud of, and even though it was through like military force and so on, and even though the campaign in Ethiopia was kind of pathetic in terms of how difficult it was for the Italian army. Again, the Italian army just sucked, and that is a thing that cost Mussolini. But again, in public, always giving off this image of being strong. And funnily enough, he stole it from Italian cinema. There was this guy named Maciste, who I think was a character or an actor who would just kind of do this exact same thing. Again, Mussolini robbed it. Hook, line, and sinker. Same to a T. Same mannerisms. Chest up. Very exaggerated movements with the arms. And it was like this Charlie Chaplin-esque type fucking character from the 20s, dude. Because content sucked back then. It was 1925. It was 1930. People didn't know how to make good movies. They weren't real. Those came later. They were absurd. They were very dramatic. It was like theater, but filmed. If you've ever been to the theater, you know that people act. It's very, very dramatic. The drama, we act. And that's what people were doing on screen, on TV. So everything was very exaggerated. And it was like, how dog-brained were people back then that all you had to do was just imitate this fucking figure. And again, I believe that it's still possible to, take lessons from fictional characters in contemporary, works, movies and stuff now, and probably have success in politics. But you would have more commentary on it. It would be diffused. It would be on TikTok. It would be on YouTube. It would be on the news. There's just more diffusion of information and content now that makes it such that it's easier to defame a person or poke holes in their methods. And that didn't really exist back then. And so Mussolini was kind of just given carte blanche to go rogue and present himself however he wanted. And no one really called on it for being absurd. It was like the first time anyone had really seen anything. Like back in the 1890s, you wouldn't really see the prime minister. You wouldn't really see the leader, you know? It was just when cameras were coming around and when footage, might be shown of him, I guess, in a movie theater before fucking the film is shown. You'd hear him on the radio, so he would have to speak in a really convicted way, even though that's not how humans colloquially speak with each other, So yeah, a really interesting character on in terms of how it is possible to rile people up and get them on board with really anything. It's almost like people want to be told what to do and what to think. If you kind of feed them a thing, they will generally just accept it and not push back that much, because thinking critically involves hard work. And there were people that hated Mussolini. There was a whole movement of partisans who sought to uproot his leadership, and they ultimately, I guess, did. I guess they ultimately did, although it was largely down to like the failure of the military campaigns in World War II, which had the whole, populist turn on Mussolini. But again, there were some, I guess, people that thought, yeah, this is bad. This guy's bad for society. But I also think that a reason why a lot of people felt that way was because they were just politically opposed to him. They were just they were diametrically opposed to him politically. Yet, in practice, I don't know how different, the socialist, government, the Socialist Party, if had the Socialist Party run Italy at the time, I don't know how different it would have been in terms of things, programs implemented and such. But really, there was like, there was a tribal thing going on where people said anything but him. We are socialists. He's a former disavowed socialist, and we cannot have him. So we must disavow him, and we must, uproot him. But it was done from a very, team's point of view. Our team cannot allow this, So again, yeah. Interesting character, dude. Interesting fucking character. I don't know. I love history. I know there's a little bit of a different tone, and it's fun to joke about and stuff. But also, I'm alone here, and it's I think it's a good exercise to do sometimes, is to go back and actually just refresh your knowledge by looking back at accounts of people. I think it's good to refresh your knowledge of historical figures or just anything, any subject that you hear about regularly, just to be informed. Too many people are uninformed now, As I'm making Mussolini jokes last week, I'm like, okay, this is fun, and again, this is funny, but I'm really I'm not really all that informed, And so it does kind of put into perspective how insane the people that now like him is, like the prospect that people now still, long for the days of him because he gave us pride. It's like, just be proud. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it invariably always goes back to race with the people that now like him. Is we're Italian and we can't have immigrants because they're not Italian, and we need to be proud of being Italians and viva il duce type of thing. It's not. There are some intellectuals, I'm sure, that still like him, that will try to debate it, based on more measurable things, like Mussolini did this, he did X, he did Y, this was good. But there's a lot of people that, I think it's most of the fucking people that have Mussolini tattoos, dog. Most of the people that are doing the Mussolini graffiti are just kind of espousing the ideas of their father, or ideas that they've kind of adopted over time based on anger toward the world. It's not thought out a lot of the time. It's very rah-rah. It's very, I hear speeches and I get hard. And by the way, I get it. It's easy to get riled up. You have to guard against it. When a guy gets up and is pontificating to the boys, I get it, dude. I get it. I've been in a locker room before. Coach is yelling at you and firing you up, sending you out to go, take head trauma in football. I get it. It's like, yeah, I'll do horrible things for this guy because I'm going to run through a wall right now. I'm fired up. You have to guard against that. I think it's good to have that. It's actually, you need to have that in society, but it's like, you got to still use your brain. You know what I'm saying? You can get fired up. If Trump says, if Trump's giving a speech, right? And he says, we're going to take these motherfuckers down, and you like him politically. Like, you decided that you like his ideas, and you're like, yeah, anti-establishment, good stuff. Lower tax rate, good stuff. Fucking, I don't know, whatever else you decide you like. Stronger borders, yeah, that makes sense. Again, if you're using your brain and you're listening to the points and you're looking at the policy, you're not saying, I like Trump because he's a good American man and because, they're whatever. This country's run by a bunch of gay boys. Now, it's like, you got to think a little more critically. Think critically, decide why it's good for society, And then if he says, we're going to take these motherfuckers out, you could, yeah, it's okay to watch your TV and go, fucking hey, it's normal. Anyway, follow me at I'm Sam Adamo. Subscribe to the pod if you're new. Please toss a like on the video. Hoping to get some shit out to you guys from Toronto in the, I guess, week to come. And yeah, thanks for tuning into this solo episode. Alla prossima. Catch you soon. Ciao.